something to get your feet tapping for a Sunday evening. Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Crandell, and this is not the Love Shack. Actually, it's This Week with Tom Crandell, and that would be me, microphone operator, Mr. Jeff, television extraordinaire producers here in studio. As always, Mr. Jeff, thank you very much for what you do for the First Amendment. Apparently, I have an article that you're not going to like, Mr. Jeff. The FCC plan to police the newsrooms. This is not a joke. We'll touch base on this because they want to send their lemmings into studios, radio, TV, to make sure. Let's see, we have it here. See, you're not fair. You're not. It's a multi-market study of critical information needs, and they're going to dispatch researchers into radio, television, even newspaper newsrooms. We weren't okay. They want to increase minority representation in newsrooms. The FCC, which has the power to issue or not issue broadcasting licenses, would dispatch its researchers to newsrooms to seek their voluntary compliance about how news stories are decided, as well as wade into office politics looking for angry reporters whose story ideas were rejected as evidence of a shutout of minority views. Right there. It comes from Nick Sorrentino against cronycapitalism.org. So there we go. So we get banned in Ireland and Scotland every time we play Amazing Grace on bagpipes. Now perhaps we'll get banned from our own airwaves. I don't know. All right, you're listening to WBCK News Talk Radio, 95.3 FM in the Battle Creek area. If you're listening to terrestrial radio, you're welcome to tune in. The show is streamed live on iHeartRadio as well as the internet. You're welcome to go to WBCKFM.com and tune in. I think we have a few listeners outstate that do that. And the phone number here, if we happen to touch a nerve, local Battle Creek numbers, 269-441-9595. Kalamazoo area, it's free call, 269-488-9595. You're welcome to join the program. We're going to switch it up a little bit. We actually have a guest in studio. His name's Garrett Murray. And if I can do this right, Garrett, are you over there on mic 2?
I am here.
Holy smokes, it worked the first time. Can you believe that? I think that's the first time that's worked. Well, I had the pleasure of meeting Garrett here a while back in the store. His website is survivethisguide.com. survivethisguide.com. Because he wrote a book, too. It's called Extreme Survival Pocket Guide. Yes, Mr. Garrett Murray is a prepper, but he's a local prepper. He's somebody we can actually drag into the studio. He's willing to come in and chime in on his 2 cents worth on. I think what really caught my eye was when we were talking, he pulled out an Altoids can, and we've all seen them. They're the little 3x4 metal can with a lid on it. And he opened it up, and it was packed full of stuff. Now, I asked him to give me a bill of materials for this, and we're going to get into that. But before we do, Garrett, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So you teach a class, actually, out at the Fort Custer Recreation Area once a month?
Yep, typically when we have enough preppers who want to learn something, my friend Denny and I will go out and we'll set up a schedule. It's not usually on the same weekend, but it's usually on a Sunday evening. And we'll go out and, you know, like the last time we were out, we did how to make primitive shelters. Mm-hmm. And we had competition where half of us built one shelter and the other built the other one. Then we also did how to start a primitive fire with, you know, what materials you had with you. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty nice to try to get a fire going when it's soaking wet and snowy out.
That's one of the challenges that Les Stroud said. If you can't start a fire after 2 days of rain, you better start practicing.
Exactly. Yep. Because you can never rely on a Bic lighter.
No, and we were talking about that before we went on air. We might touch base on that little competition. Actually, let's clue some of the listeners in. I'll pose a question to you, the listeners. the same as I posed to Garrett. If you were going to be transported back in time 400 years, so it's now 1614, and you could take one item with you from the 21st century, what would that item be? Now, you could bring multiples of that one item, but it could only be one. And the discussion centered around what would Garrett take, what would Jeff take, what would I take. And you can take any one thing. So if you wanted to take an M1A1 Abrams tank, battle tank, you could, but you can't backpack that very far anywhere. That would be tough. And you thought a fire starting, something to help, because you can't live without fire. You need fire to survive.
A magnesium rod or something like that.
Something light. Of course, you could impress the natives in 1614 with magnesium and a striker and flint and steel.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, you'd become their medicine man immediately.
But the greatest thing I'd be taking with me is my brain. Having my knowledge of survival, teaching them the ways of making more weapons than what primitive weapons they had at the time. Just maybe my military experience alone, having that advanced knowledge, because the Indians didn't have, the basic skills, like combat skills, like the British did when they were coming over.
No, those were European tactics.
That's right.
And the Indians, of course, had their guerrilla warfare tactics. Now, Garrett grew up in the country. He played in the woods. He built shelters. I did that. We built a lot of shelters behind the house. Making traps. We tried. I don't think we ever caught anything, but we sure dug a lot of holes and covered it up with leaves and light branches. At the age of 13, Garrett began volunteering for the Civil Air Patrol. There they taught things like search and rescue and camping. Now, you were in Army infantry for 7 years, United States Army. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And again, if any of you have a question for Garrett, the number's 441-9595. I would challenge you to challenge him. Perhaps what is it that you should focus on first? Did you see in Atlanta the store shelves disappeared in 2.5 days, and there were some fights over some of the food?
That's not surprising. That happens practically every single time there's a disaster. In fact, I think that happened not too long ago here when we had the power outage.
We had a week-long power outage.
Yeah, people were going crazy when we heard about the next one. When they were talking about the next storm coming through, people were buying up water from Walmart. I mean, they were saying the lines were an hour to get through the checkout line. So
now, I have from time to time run a brief prepping segment here on the show, and I'll try to glean something from the news that would be helpful. And one of them is the 37 food items that fly off the shelf first in a crisis. And I'm sure you've got the first one nailed. What's the first one that disappears, Garrett?
The first food item, or water's the first thing that goes off the
Water's
shelf.
the first thing that goes.
Yeah.
And have you ever, for example, in your home, and severe thunderstorms are coming. Now, I don't know what your electrical situation is at home and what have you, but let's assume you're on the grid. Let's assume you have your own well, so you have a well pump, and let's assume you have no generator. Have you ever filled your bathtub before a major storm has hit?
I do know about doing that. I personally don't have that situation going on where I live, but yes.
You wouldn't have that problem?
No, I wouldn't have that problem.
Okay.
Filling your bathtub, you can use the water out of the back of the toilet bowl. Mm-hmm. In fact, your hot water heater stores, depending on the size you got, it's 80 gallons.
40, 75, 80.
And there's a valve right on there that you can,
bleed that water off.
You can bleed that water right out into a bucket, and have
that's a
what you
great
need.
idea. So we all have. Now, untreated in the hot water heater, how long is that water going to be good for? Any idea?
It's, like everything goes stagnant after a while. The water in the hot water tank should be good for at least a few months.
Okay.
So
you're, from a water standpoint, many of us have that capability already.
And you always, even when there's a natural disaster, you still want to kind of boil your water, no matter if it's in your hot water heater, because you don't know what bacteria and stuff to get into that line because it's hooked right up to your main line.
Right.
So the first thing you want to do when you have a power outage and there's a water issue is go down into your basement or outside and find your shut-off valve and shut it off.
To isolate yourself from the municipal water?
Yes.
So you don't get any of their dirty water in.
Yeah, because once there's a lack of pressure in there, that's when the problems begin.
That's when the city water can force its way into your water system.
Right. And they won't never tell you that either. So
No, I wouldn't imagine they would. Did you see how quickly a few thousand gallons of that surfactant leaked into the river in West Virginia?
Yeah, and it has twice now.
This other one is a coal ash, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it very quickly turned off water to 300,000 civilians.
Yeah.
300,000 people. Now, fortunately, they were able to drive, in some instances, one county to the east or to the west or north or south, get out of that zone of impact, and have fresh water. But, one of the things you prep for, actually there's 3 things he lists here. Preps for natural disasters, civil unrest, and man-made disasters. Now, man-made disasters, what are you talking about, a chemical spill in the river?
More or less like EMPs, terrorist attacks.
Okay, that's global. I mean, that's really serious stuff.
Right. I mean, you don't know what, even our current government, I mean, there could be a coup d'etat or whatever, and, you have another Hitler-style event where they're going to come take all your guns and put you on trains, send you to FEMA camps and stuff like that, Well,
guess what happened let's see. I wanted to bring this up because I got this. Okay, February 19th. Today's the 16th, and I'd usually do this week in military history, this day in military history. But last week I started looking out a couple of days, and I found one for February 19th. And it's 10 weeks after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signs Executive Order 9066, authorizing a removal of any or all people from military areas as deemed necessary or desirable. Hence the concentration camps for our Japanese American citizens.
And that's not kidding, because when I was stationed in Hawaii, we did training over on the Big Island where they had a lot of the captured Japanese over there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's big walls stacked of rocks. I mean, these walls of rocks going for miles. And that was all, I was walking along, it's like, where did all these walls come from? All the Hawaiians do this? It's like, no, that was all the concentration camps.
Concentration camps. That were, by the way, all upheld legality by the United States Supreme Court. So if that doesn't give you faith in our judiciary, I don't know what does. We're coming up on a break. The guest is Garrett Murray. Extreme Survival Pocket Guide is his book. His website is survivethisguide.com. His little, the quote on his card is, "When it hits the fan, don't say we didn't warn you." 441-9595. We're going to go to a break. On the other side, we're going to pick it right back up again with Garrett. Thanks for tuning in. Don't go away.
I've changed apartments several times. My roommates have always been trouble. Now, because of the economy, I've had to move back home. When my mom gets drunk, she tells me everything I do is going to fail. I get into arguments with her about her drinking. Dad goes to Al-Anon family groups. I didn't think Al-Anon would work for me, but every time I go, I feel better. If someone's drinking bothers you, you might find help in an Al-Anon family group meeting right here in our community. I found support there. You can too. Call 1-888-4-AL-ANON or visit alanonfamilygroups.org.
Little roaring going on there with Katy Perry. Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Crandell, and you are listening to another edition of This Week with Tom Crandell. We have Garrett Murray in the studio, author of the Extreme Survival Pocket Guide. We have a caller on line 1. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Al, are you there? Well, let's see.
Here for the last 10 years.
Okay, there we go, Al. I'm sorry, I had the wrong button pushed. Al, what city are you calling from?
Calling from Bow Creek.
Okay, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, I've been a homeless veteran here for the last 10 years. Basically, we've been living outside here. But the number one thing for survival, which I was taught in the military as well as being out here, is just common sense. I mean, if you get wet, get cold, and that, I mean, get into a semi-dry area if you have one. And, pull off your shoes or your boots. If you have a sleeping bag, get into your sleeping bag. Make sure your shoes are off. Your socks are dry. If your socks are wet, pull your socks off before you get into the bag.
Yeah, you're trying to avoid hypothermia.
Oh, very much so. I mean,
a
person can die at 50 degrees from hypothermia. And, I mean, being out here like I've been, I mean, it's just, common sense that, you have to learn, and that. I mean, once you're here, you learn an awful lot being out here in the streets, as a homeless person. And, I mean, we have, there's hundreds of them right here within the Calhoun County area. But that's the main thing. Keep yourself as dry as you possibly can.
And that really goes, that crosses across all spectrums of having to prep, because it goes right to survival. And you're not going to survive if you die of hypothermia. And well, it's a shame you're living homeless, Al. As a veteran, I'm sure you're out to the VA getting some assistance, right? I mean, because that's there for you, right?
Well, it is, but I was brought in back during the Vietnam era. I truly hate to say it. The judge gave me the option in 1970. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I do get my medical benefits, and I'm very, very thankful for it. And that is all I get from the VA. But without that, I wouldn't have any medical.
Well, it gives you it gives you a shot at it, Al. And
there you go. There you go.
Do you have a question? Do you have a question for Garrett?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Right.
I just called to say, if you get dry, and stay yourself dry. And I mean, I learned years and years ago, God will give me what I need. He will give me shelter. He will give me food. I mean, thank God I do have an area here where I can hunt and get my food and that. But I've been blessed.
Well, good luck with it, Al, and we wish you the very best. I really appreciate you calling in. Garrett, obviously, you must talk about hypothermia. That's a real killer.
Yes, definitely. Well, like Al just said, common sense is definitely one of the biggest things that people need when they're dealing with survival. And when you're hungry, when you're tired, you're stressed, common sense usually goes right out the window. Mm-hmm. Our bodies are very delicate, and typically 3 degrees drop in your body temperature will set in hypothermia. So you have to be very aware of what if you're wearing too much, are you sweating while you're working? That's in the military. They taught us to wear layers.
Right. And they teach anyone in athletics, outdoor athletic sports, skiing, cross country, snowshoeing, dress in layers.
Yes, definitely.
And so you can adjust your. You've seen. You're a fan of The Walking Dead.
Yes, definitely love it.
Are you a fan of Survivor Man, Les Stroud, where he goes out alone?
Yes, I won't miss an episode of him.
What about Bear Grylls' show? I mean, aside from the kind of the drama that they might put in that show, do you find it useful? Do you find tidbits of useful information coming off Bear Grylls' show?
Yeah, I mean all those different prepping shows, all those survivalist shows.
Dual Survival with Cody and the other guy.
Pretty cool, except for I don't suggest wearing shorts out in the middle of Alaska.
Or bare feet.
Or bare feet,
And, of course, he mans up and wraps his feet in, like, wool leggings or something.
Right. But you got to understand that's all for show.
Sure.
They're going to put themselves in
I think he lives in either Arizona or New Mexico in a hut.
Yes,
so,
he does.
Even in the wintertime in the high desert.
And he chose to live that way right out of college.
Yeah.
He lived in a tent for years, and there's a lot of people who do that. In fact, my mom's new husband, he for quite a long time lived in a tent after his divorce, and he put his son to college while he lived in a tent. He lived
in a tent.
So it's not uncommon to find people living that way.
But some of the lessons we can learn are right there on television. Les Stroud is always death on hypothermia, getting wet, getting dry. Bear Grylls is the same way. I think he had to cross a lake once. He stripped bare naked, sacked up his clothes so they didn't get wet. He had a dry bag with him.
Yep.
And he swam that body of water and immediately, got dried off, got his dry clothes on, started a fire, and paid attention. Of course, he was SAS, British Special Forces. Now, you were in the military. We're going to talk about, we're at the bottom of the hour. I've got to take another break. We're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to hold Garrett over because I think some of you might have more questions or something to add to the conversation. 441-9595. Do not go away. All right, everyone, you're listening to This Week with Tom Crandell, and that would be me, your host, Tom Crandell. And we have a caller, I think, on line one. What's your name, and where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Al calling back. I have a question for Garrett.
Al, a twofer. That doesn't happen much. Go ahead, ask Garrett your question.
Yeah, Garrett. I currently have a Walrus Armadillo Arctic tent. It is getting very, very old. I was wondering if you have any idea of where I could pick up another one here locally.
Well, I tell you what, Garrett, think about that a second. What he wants to upgrade his tent. And Al, thanks for calling back in with that question.
Well, locally, I wouldn't know of anybody. It depends on what you mean local. If you mean just Battle Creek, I don't know too many places that offer free tents. But there is a free store in Concord run by a church, and they typically have tents and pots and pans. I mean, I'm talking the cast iron pots and pans. That'd be the place I would check.
It's called the Free Store?
Yes, it's called the Free Store.
And it's in Concord,
right
Michigan.
On the main strip. Yep, my mother runs it. Yeah, she works there, and it's all done by donations. You can come in, take what you want, and just write a thank you letter, and that's pretty much it.
Well, Al, if you can find your way to Concord, you sound like a very resourceful fella. I'm sure where there's a will, there is a way. And we have been talking about prepping, and not in the context of the Doomsday Prepper shows. That has morphed into something that really doesn't apply much to us. For example, what does apply to us is what Garrett did with his Altoids can. 5 matches. These are wooden matches that are not Strike Anywhere. He's watching budgets now. Those cost, the Strike Anywhere matches cost more. So he's packed 5 matches. He taped the match striker to the inside of the lid of the can. He has a small magnifying lens, a compass, a snare wire and a wire saw, candle, 2 cotton balls, 30 to 50 yards of fishing line, fishing hooks. He uses chem lights for their ice fishing chem lights. They're to jazz up your bait. He has a pencil, 3 safety pins, 2 antihistamine tablets, 3 Band-Aids, 2 butterfly closures, antibiotic ointment, 3 paper clips, and electrical tape wrapped around the outside of the can to keep it all waterproof. Now, this is just an emergency stash that's packaged neatly and tightly, and it doesn't weigh much, doesn't take up much cubic space in your pack or your jacket. But just think if you were on the show Survivor, they make you eat gross food and you have to throw it up just to get some fishing line. And really something like this with a snare wire, fishing line, and hooks, now you can begin to feed yourself. And it's very cool. I don't know if he shows it as his website, survivethisguy.com, but I'm sure at some point he would take a phone call and tell you how, you can't have more than $5 in this Altoids can.
Yeah, these cans typically would, if you were to buy one made like from Bear Grylls or something like that from Walmart or whatever, they charge about $50 for one of these cans, and I just thought that was crazy. I mean, that's a lot.
That is crazy.
That's a lot to be asking for all these simple little items, and these are all household items. The tea candle and the cotton
paper
balls.
clips.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff you find.
The
laying
Band-Aids,
around.
for crying out loud. Everybody has Band-Aids in their house.
Typically, what you want to have is if you have something on you, you should be able to have it for 3 different uses. If it doesn't serve 3 different purposes, then it's not worth carrying.
Now, do you talk now at these classes you teach? And this is really cool. I mean, Garrett actually is trying to make his own way in the world, and it would behoove you to check out his website and maybe go to that Sunday class. You're bound to learn something, and natural disasters are all around us every season.
Yes,
We're going to get thunderstorms next week, or this coming week. I think on Thursday they're predicting a chance of thunderstorms. Now, with the snow that we have and the lack of runoff, if we start, and many drains are frozen shut or near frozen shut, what kind of water are we going to, things can happen. You have to think about survival. And in fact, in your book, Garrett, I'll be so kind, you actually, on the introduction, page 4, survival, it's a noun, a state of surviving, remaining alive, a natural process resulting in the evolution of organisms best adapted to the environment, something that survives. And then you kind of morph that into an acronym, survival. S, size up your situation, survey your surroundings, physical condition, and equipment on hand. Maybe somebody's with you, they're injured. That's going to impact what you do. You use your senses, your hearing, your seeing, your tactile, the touch, taste, smell, and senses. And there I would add in, listen to your second voice. Listen to that little voice that says, I'm not comfortable going down that path. Then
Yes.
don't go down that path.
Yes, that's definitely something you want to do. Is if you have that little feeling inside you that says this is not good, listen to it.
Listen to it.
It's a defense mechanism built into us, and it has proven time and time again to get us out of danger. It's the fight or flight type of situation.
Right, the fight or flight, yeah.
And usually you get that little voice inside your head is more right than you'll ever have common sense.
Now, before we went on the air tonight, Garrett and Jeff and I were talking, and one of the things, and I talked about this briefly a while back when Les Stroud had a couple of shows on his 5 top fire-making methods, his 5 top shelter methods, his 5 top food items when he's in a survival mode. And one of the biggest challenges to surviving, and in his case, he used lost. It starts out with you become lost. Mm-hmm. And he goes through the physical reactions where the fear, because this is part of your survival, you say V, part of survival, the V is vanquish fear and panic. That's exactly what Les was saying. Starts to creep into your mindset when you're lost. Your heart rate picks up a little bit. You begin to move faster. You begin to breathe harder. You begin to perspire more. You begin to fear that perhaps something's behind you. You begin to lose your ability to walk a straight line. This fear, this panic can eat you alive, literally. And you were talking about that. As far as vanquishing fear and panic, you need to get that under control.
Yes, you have to. When you start, you can realize you're starting to panic. I'm out there and I'm walking along the woods and I'm on my favorite trail and I think I know where I'm at, but all of a sudden things start not to look familiar to me.
Yep.
It's starting to get dark out. First thing we start doing is okay, I got to hurry up and find some...
Walk faster. That solves
walk
everything.
faster. Find that point that...
Walking faster solves everything.
So, you start running and then, before you know it, you're tumbling down a ravine.
I can't believe you mentioned that. Les said that, as you move faster, you're paying attention less. Mm-hmm. Slip, trip, and fall. That's our worst risks to our own safety on a workplace. Is you're more likely to injure yourself in a workplace accident than, say, Jeff causing you to trip over one of his many wires that he has floating around here tonight. But now you're injured. Now you have a twisted ankle.
Yes.
Now you have a broken femur. Now you're dead.
Yep. So
And-
the best thing to do is just stop. You know, there's nothing's going to harm you if you just stop for 5-10 minutes and calm yourself down.
Calm yourself down.
And then start thinking more rationally.
I'd like to know if the number is 4419595. Are any of you listening, would you be man or woman enough to admit that you've become lost and that you've succumbed to this fear? It's bound to have happened to some of us. As a kid, I was lost long ago. I did keep walking. It was deer season up northern Michigan. And in the woods, I was hunting. It wasn't the Upper Peninsula. I was going to eventually cut a road, and I did. And I eventually made my way back. I didn't recognize anything because I was 14 years old, and I wasn't driving then, and sneaking out into the Manistee National Forest late at night with my friends from high school, which I never did, even when I was old enough to drive well, maybe once or twice. But I made my way back to camp. But there were times I was scared, but it hadn't happened. Of course, if you hunt the farmlands of southern Michigan, you really can't get lost. I suppose you could get injured and get stuck out there, but eventually, if you've told people you're going out and when you're going to come back, those kinds of things on your recreational trips, which again is part of survival. It's thinking ahead and letting someone know where you're going, when you're expected to be back. And now I know you're girding for natural disasters, civil unrest, man-made disasters. I want to read you this. Ohio National Guard training envisions right-wing terrorism. Documents from an Ohio National Guard training drill conducted last January reveal the details of a mock disaster where Second Amendment supporters with, quote, anti-government opinions were portrayed as domestic terrorists. The Ohio National Guard 52nd Civil Support Team training scenario involved a plot from local school district employees. Whoa, I knew we always had to keep our eye on them. To use biological weapons in order to advance their beliefs about protecting gun rights and Second Amendment rights. Portsmouth Chief of Police Bill Raisin told NBC Channel 3 WSAZ in Huntington, West Virginia, that the drill accurately represented the reality of the world we live in, adding that such training helps us all be prepared. Is he kidding?
No, they're not kidding.
Yeah, but is he kidding about the reality of the world we live in? How many... I big Second Amendment supporter here. I'm sorry, it's in the Constitution. The reality of the world we live in is not the threat of Second Amendment terrorists. Unless you plan on doing things like the government buying 141,000 rounds of sniper ammo.
Oh, yeah, that's for the Postal Service.
Well, no, this particular one's Homeland Security. February 11th.
Let's not put that on how much they've already bought up in the past couple of years.
DHS is buying more bullets with a solicitation for over 141,000 rounds of sniper ammo.
Yeah, that's actually
that's not target ammo.
That's the zombie rounds they're actually buying.
That's the zombie rounds, and the important thing is it's .308 Winchester.
Right.
And what's the favorite aside from some of the long-range super snipers in Afghanistan loving the .50 caliber? What's the favorite caliber of military snipers?
7.62.
7.62. And how close is that to the .308 with ballistics?
Pretty close.
It's pretty close.
Yep.
Well, they say here what makes the .308 ammunition so deadly is the long-range capability of the round. The ability is called ballistic coefficient, or the efficiency of projectile in overcoming air resistance as it travels to its target. But the Ohio National Guard envisions right-wing terrorism. Now, in the disaster preparedness scenario, 2 Portsmouth Junior High School employees poisoned school lunches with mustard gas, acting on orders from white nationalist leader William Pierce. The Ohio National Guard team discovered bioweapons being produced in the school, requiring activation of containment and decon procedures. Participants in the drill located documents expressing the school employees' anti-government sentiments. Let's see, they go on, no apologies to Ohioans who support limited government, and the Second Amendment appears to be forthcoming. But they can run all these little, I contend this, they can run these little drills all they want because it's a drill. But when push comes to shove, you're a 7-year Army veteran. Are you telling, they want me to believe that you, somebody like Garrett Murray, 5 years into your hitch, are given orders to wage war on American citizens who support Second Amendment rights, you're not going to do that. You're not going to follow that order.
No.
Some might, but many more are not.
And that's a question on the question they're asking a lot of the military people now is, would you fire upon a United States citizen?
And if you answer no,
they put you out.
You aren't in.
Yeah.
Well, and again, these 18, 19, 20-year-olds saying yes, they're just telling them what they want to hear. There's no way that some might, and those would be the ones you'd have to contend with, but many more would not. And actually, I think in the initial dust-up, the military members who would not do this would solve that other problem for us.
Right.
And then we wouldn't have to contend with that out in the street.
I'm sure there'd be a lot of military personnel who would just turn and fight with the American people. Yeah, they're patriots.
They
There's
are
a few, numbskulls out there that will just follow orders and act upon whatever their commanding general tells them to do.
Garrett, we have a caller on line 1. At least I thought we did. Yeah, I think we do. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Ed from Galesburg.
Hey, Ed from Galesburg. Welcome to the show. And do you have a question for our guests today?
Well, I was just going to mention that it was the Ohio National Guard that killed 4 college students, at Kent State. So
that's true.
I'm sure they were young people, they might have been 19 years old as National Guardsmen. So
that's a very good point.
Yeah.
We have that in our history.
Yeah.
These kids were protesting, and I think they were throwing rocks.
Yeah, they might have been throwing rocks, I wouldn't doubt. But,
but these were hippies. These were the 60 counterculture hippies.
Yeah, they were protesting, I believe, in Cambodia. Because there were protests across the nation that day, because I was protesting at Western Michigan University. And, it was going on all over the place, and Kent State just happened to be the place where they were fired upon.
So it is possible in this republic to imprison hundreds of thousands of U.S. citizens that the Supreme Court upheld. Okay, this lauded, vaulted, wonderful think tank we call the Supreme Court approved that. Okay,
right.
We have a National Guard, right or wrong, that did fire on innocent civilians. To think that it can't happen again, that's a very good point, Ed. Thank you very much for calling in. I appreciate it.
Okay, and thank you for your show.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening. We are always grateful to have Galesburg listeners.
You know what scares me?
What's that?
It's not the ammunition purchases. What scares me is the targets they're purchasing. Have you seen the targets they purchased?
No, but I tell you what, we're late on a break. I'm going to go to the break. Okay. We'll come back, and we'll talk about that. Having Garrett in the studio today is a lot of fun. The number is 441-9595. I would invite you to call in as well. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Tom Crandell. You're listening to the last segment of This Week with Tom Crandell. We have Garrett Murray, author extraordinaire, Extreme Survival Pocket Guide. You can find it on his website, survivethisguide.com. You can also buy his book, Extreme Survival Pocket Guide by Garrett Murray on Amazon. And it wouldn't hurt. He's recommending you buy the Scout Manual. There's lots of books out there. And we have another caller on line 1. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, I came on pretty quick. My name is Tim from Battle Creek.
Hey, Tim from Battle Creek. Welcome to the show.
I didn't mean to go off on a tangent like this, but you led into it.
Anything? What's on your mind?
Okay, I'll try to keep it cool.
Yeah, be nice or my finger's on the drop button, so be nice.
No, it's not going to be that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, you had a news thing on earlier about how we're going to give Michigan State or somebody $100 billion to go after green.
Yeah, great.
And you talk about the ammunition that the government is buying and also the IRS going against conservatives. And I could list many, many more situations which show that this particular regime, if not many before, the government can't be trusted. But when they say that it's going to be Second Amendment people or domestic terrorists, it's just setting everybody up for who knows what.
Well, it's almost like the old subliminal commercials at the movie theater where they were eventually outlawed? They would show nanosecond clips of popcorn in between some of the commercial ads, and people would go buy popcorn and candy and things like that. I think it's Karl Marx, it's Saul Alinsky, it's the application of Engels, it's the application of all these things filtering down with the power of the executive branch, the congressional, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. When we have a Supreme Court that actually upholds the incarceration of hundreds of thousands of innocent U.S. citizens, really, and that was a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And
one other thing, you talked about the FCC.
Yeah, the FCC. Yep.
Well, I used to know all these names by heart. There was Frank Lloyd something Mark, or he was going to be trying to use the fairness doctrine and all that.
Oh yeah.
But to end off everything, I've always wondered what happened to all the czars. I have a file on them and the personalities they were, and most of them were socialists, at least, if not some of them Marxist. They are basically, if they still exist because we don't hear about them, a shadow government behind our government.
Well, I tell you what, Ed, that's a great point, and I want to thank you for calling, and I really want to thank you for listening. Garrett, this goes to Ed's point. You ever see the movie with Sean Connery where he's the Russian sub-commander and he's defecting to the U.S., and on board that sub is a political officer, and he's the first guy Sean Connery kills?
Yes, I remember that. So you're kind of dating
Red Dawn.
Yeah, you're dating me, but yeah.
What's it? Oh, Hunt for Red October. Famous Hunt for Red October from the Clancy novel series. Those czars, they've gotten security clearances, the highest you can get at Department of Defense, Homeland Security, HHS. They've infected every branch because the executive branch can put them there. Mm-hmm. And now the Senate has no oversight with who's appointed because Reid did away with the filibuster.
Yeah. And you got, well, what do you need the Congress for anyways when you have Obama bypass him writing
with
executive
a pen.
orders? Yeah. He says, with my pen, I'll write anything I want and do what I want.
And the disturbing, the most disturbing about this is the Republicans are saying Obama's violating the Constitution, but little can be done about it. And we're going to rely on them to defend us? I'm not advocating armed rebellion. I'm advocating we all get off the couch and we all go vote.
Yeah.
Every chance we get.
But what's the point of voting if we're just going to vote for a two-party system?
Well, we have no choice.
Because Bush was no better than Obama.
Not particularly. Now, the one thing he was better at was with the military. He admired them. He respected them. They admired and respected him. There was trust there. I think they easily delivered bad news to that man, where in today's White House, it's you do not deliver bad news to that president.
Yeah.
And many insiders are coming out saying that. No, I think, Garrett, you were in the Army, and when I see the guys fighting and girls fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq, some of the video that we see, the film by service members, and they're trying to achieve fire superiority. They're trying to get lead down range so the bad guys keep their heads down while we move.
Yeah.
You're not fighting for Mom. You're not fighting for apple pie. And you're not fighting for red, white, and blue or the president or the Secretary of Defense. You're fighting for those guys to your right and to your left. That's why we have to vote.
Yes.
Because we have to vote. Is distasteful as it is, you have to make the best of a bad situation. You cannot abdicate to exercise your privilege to vote.
That reminds me. I was watching
for your kids. Vote for your kids.
I was watching a video on Netflix the other day, and it was about a group of Michiganders, Yoopers. They all joined the National Guard or the reservists, and it was about the time Obama was about to become president, and they were like, "Oh, I can't wait for Obama. Hope he becomes president because he's going to get us out of Afghanistan, and we're going to be all good to go." And later on in the video, Harry is, "Sorry guys, you're going back to war. We're going to send you over here now." And it's like, you voted for him. He lied.
Guess what, guys? You get to run security at Benghazi at the diplomatic mission there. Mm-hmm. It's like Mark Levin. I like Mark Levin. he was commenting, the president said, if I had a son, I wouldn't let him play football. It's too dangerous. You can hurt your head, so we're not going to do that. And Mark Levin said, well, if I had a son, I wouldn't let him be one of your ambassadors. Yeah, because really, and this is word of the day from our friend Joe, Quisling, traitor or betrayer. Do not be a Quisling. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate for that word of the day. That's nice. Garrett Murray, Garrett Morris, the comedian, Saturday Night Live. Sorry about that. Garrett Murray, survivethisguide.com. He's a local guy. He's trying to make a go of it with his family. He's not relying on anyone else. He's making his way in the world. Go check it out, survivethisguide.com. The name of his book is Extreme Survival Pocket Guide. And I will not give out his email or his phone. I think they can get a hold of you from the website. If they choose to, I won't give that out in the air. And actually, you had a shot at Doomsday Preppers, but they wanted to expose your prepping, and you didn't want that.
No, I don't want anybody knowing what I have.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. We have not much time left, about 30 seconds. So, Garrett, I'd like to thank you for coming in. Always, Mr. Jeff. First Amendment, it's awesome. Let's exercise it in spite of the FCC political officers that might be descending on us. I think I still have time to get banned in Ireland and Scotland. Let's see if we can do that. Oh, yeah, here we go.